we are joined by the fabulous Anna Lena Burger, who's going to be presenting some of her research to us today. I'm delighted to welcome Anna today. Anna's a postdoc at the Department of Bioscience, Education and Zoobiology, and she's got a host of experience both as a teacher and supervisor for students of biological and educational sciences. Anna's research focuses on chronobiological behavioural studies, and she's particularly interested in nocturnal behaviour and its possible influencing factors. As I'm sure many of you are aware, it's quite difficult to undertake sort of large-scale comparative studies within zoos, but actually we need to do these to start to answer some of the really complex questions behind animal welfare. So Anna's been using real state-of-the-art technologies in terms of videography, thermography, and also artificial intelligence to support this work. She's been working extremely hard to build up an exceptionally large network across German and European zoos to help her to start to answer some of these questions. And Anna today is going to be talking to us about some of her work on nocturnal behaviour in African mammals. So over to you, Anna. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Ellen, for the kind introduction and the invitation to the webinar. So hello to all of you out there, and it's really nice to see so many familiar faces and colleagues out there. And I feel this is a very great opportunity to share our findings and to discuss so many interesting topics all related to the theme or science of animal welfare. And I'm very happy to be part of it. So today we will talk about behavior and especially about nocturnal behavior. And we will focus, as Alan said, on African mammals. In order to get you in the right mood for this, I invite you to take a very short trip to Namibia with me. So please feel free to lean back and enjoy the talk. This talk will be about time and the right timing, about different species and different behavioral patterns. And we will talk about behavioral research methods. So to start with, I would like to invite you to watch this short video clip with me. And while doing this, please ask or answer maybe yourself the question, what kind of information do we get out of this video? Or in other words, how do the giraffes behave? As you've seen, there's already a lot of information we can get from this 1-minute observation. First of all, we do know who is performing the behavior. In this case, giraffes, and we could see different individuals. So we saw 2 adult females and 6 young giraffes in this short clip. We can tell what the animals were doing. So we saw different behavioral patterns. The young ones were mostly lying down on sandy ground. The giraffes were, the adult ones were sniffing, walking around. And this is several patterns we could observe in this clip. We did get information where the animals were performing a specific behavior. So, for example, the young ones lying on a sandy ground, not on the grass or something, but on a sandy ground. And we do see, of course, habitat and vegetation and get some information about that, like the bushes and the trees in the back and the mountains in the back. We do have some information, whether it is a group or an individual. In this case, it's a group of 8 giraffes. And we can see, or we could see in this case, several interactions between the animals. And we could answer at least somehow when a specific behavior occurs. You can't see that very well from the video, but I can tell you that this was recorded during dusk, around 6 o'clock. And so we have information about the time of day. Could also be information in this video that behavior is a reaction to several stimulus, and there could be, in this case, sniffing. So the adult one was sniffing at the young one, and that's one the young one was getting up as a reaction to this stimulus. One behavior followed another behavior. So wrapping up, we already got a lot of information. However, we do not know anything about their behavioral rhythmicity, about their rhythm so far. So why is that? Looking at that figure, it gets obvious. So we had 1 minute clip that was recorded around 6 o'clock. We do not have any information whether these animals were behaving the same in the early morning or at midnight or at noon, for example. Further, we have just 1 day clip. So it's just a recording of 1 day. So we again do not know how was this group of animals behaving yesterday, or how is it behaving in a week, for example. Looking a big from the bigger picture, we recorded this clip in summer, so November, December in Namibia. And again, we do not know how this animal would behave, for example, at 6 o'clock in spring or in autumn, for example. And last but not least, we just saw 8 individuals in this case, and we do not have any idea whether this group is behaving or was behaving same like a group, for example, that is right next to us, but we couldn't see it. So there's just information on these specific individuals, and we cannot tell about other individuals or other groups, how they behaved at that specific point of time. So it seems quite complex and difficult to answer the presumably easy question of how do giraffes behave. Obviously, more data is needed to answer this question in a scientific way. To answer it, several requirements need to be fulfilled. So on one hand, we need sufficient different individuals and settings. Settings could be different zoos, for example, in a captive environment, or in the wild, different habitats, for example. Then we need different or enough animals, individuals from the same species, but of both sexes and of all age classes, to analyze whether there are behavioral characteristics, for example, for females or for the young ones. So we need sufficient animals from all of these groups. And in terms of observation, these factors have to be, one has to be these factors in mind when planning the observation. So the best case scenario would be that we could observe the animals 24/7 throughout day and night for consecutive days and nights across seasons to cover summer, winter season, and across lifespan, so to cover all age stages of an individual from a specific species. So this seems like a big effort. The question coming up immediately is how to achieve that. One option would be to send someone dedicated researchers out to the field and to do the observation. So on first sight, that may sound like the perfect job. However, that would take one person nearly forever, as behavioral research in the wild is very, very difficult. Following the animals is sometimes really, really hard. Not disturbing them in their normal setting and behavior is very, it's not that easy, and the cost for field research are relatively high. Another option would be to use the great treasure named EAZA member. doing behavioral research in zoos comes along with several benefits I want to show you now. So I think one of the biggest treasures of the EAZA animal collection is the diversity of species. We do have many individuals of one species in different settings. So the requirements are already fulfilled when we are working together. One benefit is also that we do nearly everything about the individual. So we do know where they are coming from, how old they are, whether they are had some health issues or if they are quite good at the moment. We do have very easy access to the animals, so we can observe 24/7 without without any problems. And that's compared to field studies on a very low cost base. And what is also a very great advantage of doing behavioral research in zoos is the great expertise, of course. So keepers and curators dedicating their work to continuously work on animal welfare and for their animals and their care is just the best we could have when we need to know something about the animals. And of course, it's a perfect setting to develop and to test and validate new methods. We did that, for example, when developing new methods to observe the animals in Namibia. We tested our equipment before in the zoo, and then we had to optimize a lot. And therefore the zoo was also very, very great. So we do have the animals to observe. We know the requirements that need to be fulfilled to do the research, but it still looks like a really big job to be done. So why on earth should we study the behavior of our zoo animals or that of their wild counterparts? And the answer comes, among others, from our own associations, EAZA and WAZA. So although animal welfare science is a quite young research discipline, already 20 years ago, several experts stated to use behavior as a parameter to assess animal welfare, answering the main questions of animals' well-being. So this could be done by behavioral observation. And we try to answer the questions, is the animal healthy and does the animal have what it wants? So behavior could be here a very good option to answer these questions. As I said, that one is 20 years ago, but right now within the WAZA animal welfare strategy, the new 5-domain model has been established, and even there we find behavior to be one of the 5 physical domains. And effectively, no welfare assessment can be done without behavioral observation. Therefore, I would like to show you this slide. It's actually a screenshot from the talk of Heather Bacon she gave some months ago in the webinar. And she showed this slide presenting the study of Paul Rose, how the workflow of animal welfare assessment can be or can look like. And when you have a look at it, then you will see immediately that there's behavior or behavioral observation under normal conditions, and it comes again after the intervention. So there can't be any welfare assessment without behavioral observation. We have to define the normal behavior of this animal or species we are looking at. Then we perform the audit. Maybe there will be an intervention, kind of change in the husbandry, for example. And then we have to observe again, see whether the intervention had an impact on the animal's behavior or not. So it's written down in this Caring for Wildlife strategy that zoos are pleased to enable and to do research to determine baseline behavior. So there's a great and very nice chapter on research in this strategy. So if you're interested, please feel free to look at it and to get some more information there. That behavioral observation of wild animals is not only for assessing welfare of captive animals or individuals, but it can also provide information on behavioral adaptations in response to human influences. And I just found 2 very recent studies that we're looking at animals worldwide, how they behave or reacted to different disturbance factors caused by humans. So the first study I show you here is done by Gaynor et al. And they observed animal behavior, and they found out that animals shifted their activity phases into the night, although they would be naturally diurnal. So they seek for new temporal niches as disturbance was too high during the day. And this was done with 62 species from 6 different continents. And the other study, this study just came out recently, was looking at behavior, again, worldwide, of 2,300 terrestrial mammals from 43 species. And they looked at the wildlife behavior during lockdown season. One could say lockdown season, during lockdown in 2019, and compared this to data from 2019. And then they found out that during the days, weeks, months, when nobody was on the streets anymore, the wildlife came back and was way more close to the streets than they were before, when humans were still on these roads and trafficking much. So both studies conclude that such responses can result in marked shifts away from their natural patterns of activity, with consequences for fitness, population persistence, and evolution. By doing this research for this talk, I also checked our new platform, the Zoo Science Library. And this is just a fantastic tool that was just launched a few months ago. And in this database, you can find publications where zoos were involved in doing research. And so now there are about nearly 600 articles available for the years 2020 and 2021. And I was curious about on how many studies behavior was observed. And this is what I found. So from these 600 articles, around about 1/3 is on behavior somehow, maybe in the title or in the abstract, so behavior is somehow present in these articles. Then I wanted to see if there many research going on nocturnal behavior, on sleep behavior, on resting behavior. So in general, on activity during the day or during the night. And as you can see, there's very low publications regarding these topics. There's a little bit more research going on regarding activity connected with feeding management, enrichment, or social behavior. And I think one reason is that during the day, it's way more easy to do behavioral research. And normally you give the enrichment in the morning or during the day, and then you want to see right after whether it has an effect or not. And when I looked up in the direction of rhythmicity, so what's the behavioral rhythm, daily or nocturnal or 24/7, you see the numbers, it's nearly zero. So there's a lot to do and many space for you if you're interested in doing behavioral research. Of course, this is just the articles of 2 years, so I'm sure there's way more when we're going back the years, but this will be done in the future to put these into the database as well. So obviously more behavioral research is needed. And if you're interested and if you're working on a research project right now, or you did in the past, then please feel free to submit your publication. Right now, there is the database is looking for publications published in 2022. There are already so many of you involved in research projects, and your support is just fantastic. So this is just an overview of zoos our working group is working with. And I know that there is so many more out there of you working together with universities, having their own research departments in the zoo. So that's just very great work, and it would never go work without you. So yeah, that's the time to say a big thank you to all of you to participating and giving so much support by doing our research studies. Okay, for the next part of the talk, I want to show you how that behavior research works. First of all, we need data. Right now, we have two options to get these behavioral data. First option would be direct observation. So one is standing right in front of an enclosure, observing the animals. We do have a software developed using, or that can be used with an app. It's similar to 𝘕𝘪𝘮𝘀𝘕𝘪𝘮𝑗𝑎𝑎𝑝. You can just type in the individual you are observing, the behavior the animal is showing, and you can mark on a map where the behavior is taking place or is showed by the animal. And then you can get a very nice detailed protocol out of it. And for example, a heat map where a specific behavior is shown the most, for example. And then there's a second option. The second option is to install infrared sensitive cameras in the enclosures. And that's what we mostly do for the bigger project. So our team is going to your zoos and then installing cameras there and recording the behavior, mostly nocturnal. Whenever it's possible, we record 24/7, but mostly it sticks to nocturnal behavior. And on the right, there you see a camera, just a little, how to say, I don't know. Remember to fix the cameras out of range. This is the camera my colleague 𝘕𝘰𝘮𝘪𝘐𝑚 installed in an enclosure with big cats. And remember to put them out of their range, otherwise you would get this specific type of a camera version back. So I wanted to show you how such data may look like, what we are collecting. This is an example of 𝘈𝘭𝑚 in Kronberg, showing the giraffe enclosure. It's just one camera on the top of the enclosure and recording the behavior of the giraffe you see here. And of course, it's infrared light. So for the animals at that time, there's no light. They can't see the infrared. So it's dark for them. Let's have a closer look at the pipeline, how behavioral data is processed. So first of all, we have to decide for an animal or for a species we want to observe, and depending on the research question, what we want to find out about this special individual or species. Then we need an ethogram. So we need to define the behaviors we want to observe and what the animals are showing. And we do get some further information by observing animal behavior. That could be, for example, body condition. So by observing the animal, of course, we look at the whole animal and we can, with some body condition score index, for example, get some information about their body condition. Same for enclosure use, or for example, for vocalization. So while observing behavior, it would be very nice to record the vocalization as well, if it's possible. From then on, we need to determine an observation period and have to decide for a sampling rate. Then we can start to collect the data. So we start the video recording, which we then analyze, and there's different ways. So one way would be by one person just sitting there watching the videos and typing a protocol about the behaviors the animal showed, or the use of artificial intelligence, for example, to speed that process up and to be able to analyze way more data than when one person would do that. Oh, that's the wrong direction. Then, of course, in the best case, we get some results out of it, and we can draw a conclusion, in this case, for example, for animal welfare, how we can use this information we got from the behavioral observation to contribute to the question of animal welfare. So I want to focus a little more on the timing and data collection. Why is it so important to choose the right time for your observation? So one would suggest that the diurnal animals, such as the giraffe, that this animal or the diurnal animals are quite active during the day, and during the night there's kind of a resting phase, sleeping phase. That rhythm during the night depends on the species, how they behave. However, several difficulties arise when observing animal behavior only during the day, and this is this is what I want to show you with the pictures on the right side. So there's very much going on during the day in the zoo, but also, as we heard, in the wild, thinking of big roads, lots of traffic. So there's during the day a lot of going on, and many potential influencing factors on behavior. Buchanan, Smith, and Brando wrote a very nice paper about the need of 24/7 behavioral observation, and I think looking at this figure is really impressive, because you can see how many influencing factors during the day potentially do influence the behavior of the animal, and during the night, which is half of the life of an animal, occurs during the night, and there's none of these influencing factors anymore. So there's just the animal and the enclosure, and all of these anthropogenic influences do disappear during the night. Although we know that, and although there is half of the life of an animal occurring during the night, there's so little research done, and we do know so little about the nocturnal behavior of so many species. So there is definitely a need for research. When observing during the night, we have to decide, or not during the night, whenever it could be the same during the day, we have to decide for a suitable sampling rate. Depending on the question, there are different opportunities. So one opportunity is to do interval-based observation, would mean that you look, for example, every 10 minutes, what is your animal doing, and then you write it down, and then you know, okay, that's 7 o'clock animal was doing that, 10 to 7 the animal was standing up, and so on. Here we do have information for the whole night, but it's kind of difficult when we want to have a look at very rarely occurring behavior patterns, because we might miss them when they are occurring in between the intervals. So this is for very not so detailed activity budgets possible, but it's not perfect yet. The other option would be to choose a time period and do continuous recording within this period. So we get detailed information for at least the first 3 hours, for example, of the night, and we know everything they are doing within these 3 hours. That's pretty good, because then we have a very detailed picture of these 3 hours, but as you can see, we do not know anything about the rest of the night. So, as you can assume, continuous recording throughout the whole night would be the perfect solution, and we get the most detailed information out of this sampling rate, and have a great basis for analyzing the activity budget. There's some really nice papers and books by Bateson and Paul Rose again wrote an article where this is summed up a little bit more in detail, and if you want to have a look, please feel free. That's my recommendation. So observational studies, and that is what Watt has said in his article. It's also a good article when talking about behavioral observation in zoos. Said that observational studies are commonly used in order to better understand animal behavior, including its patterns, prevalence, and timing. Compiling and analyzing an extensive activity budget of a species is thereby an established tool in animal behavior science. And to give you an idea how these activity budgets might look like, on the left side, there is a publication by Markus Klaus and colleagues, and they worked with camera traps in the field to record the 24/7 behavior of several mammals. Another way to present activity budgets could be that one. So every line is one individual, and you can see from 5 on in the afternoon what the animal did throughout the night. And you already see two blue groups, and this is the lying and the REM sleeping phase, and they can imagine kind of a rhythm already. What we are doing as well is that we focus on one specific behavioral pattern, and that is the REM sleep, so the rapid eye movement sleep behavior. And this is why, or this is because the the body position during this REM sleeping phase is so specific for each species that you can perfectly detect or determine it when you're analyzing the video. So for this sleeping phase, the animal has to lay completely down. Every body part has to be on the ground or on the body. Otherwise, it would just fall down when they enter this REM sleep phase. And as you all know, that's the main reason why we are looking at sleep, is that sleep is a very, very sensitive phase. So you all know that when you're really excited or when you're ill, for example, then you have a different sleep behavior. So sometimes you sleep shorter. When you're ill, most of the time you sleep way longer than normal. And this could be applied for the animals as well. So we do have an indicator if something might be not perfect when the sleep behavior is completely different to what it should be normally. Okay. For the bigger part of the talk right now, I want to show you 3 examples of our recent projects and show you what they are, what the goals or the aims of this research are. So first of all, there's a project going on right now on the yellow-backed duiker, and there we are doing fundamental research and having a special look at their breeding behavior. Second, there's a study done by my colleague 𝘕𝘰𝘤𝘵𝘪𝘮𝘦. She focused on lion and cheetah, and she analyzed the 24/7 activity budget and looked how feeding management or feeding regime has an impact on their behavior. And the third study is on giraffes. So there we have done long-term studies on captive individuals and investigated influencing factors. And we did studies in the wild and observed their nocturnal behavior and got some pretty nice information about their rhythmicity, group constellation, and habitat. So I want to present you those 3 projects a little bit more in detail. There's the yellow-backed duiker. This species is near threatened in the wild. Population trend is decreasing, and it's a very, very small population in European zoos. So actually it's less than 10. And there's a big need of getting this group into breeding, into successful breeding. And so we are doing there a lot of fundamental research, observing diurnal and nocturnal behavior, doing together with some colleagues hormone analysis, for example, to get information on nearly everything, because there's nothing known about this beautiful animal. And with the results, we want to contribute to best practice guidelines and husbandry and management guidelines. So how do we do that? We observe the few duikers we have in the zoo. Again, we analyze the videos we got. We do this with a focal sampling, and continuous recording means we are recording every behavior, every second, what the animal is doing. So no interval or some method where we could lose some information. So we want to know everything in order to know more about the species behavior. The results we get out of these observations are activity budgets from 5 to 7. So that's in the morning. That's the time frame we are looking at the night observation and try to determine the behavior rhythm. And as I said, we want to try to answer the W questions we saw for the giraffes in the beginning, and try to get some implications for management. I brought you a short video of this little duiker here. You see the duiker is lying and it's already relatively sleepy. And now going into the specific REM sleep position, what will happen in a few seconds is that the animal is starting to switch with its ears, twitch its ears, and that's typically as well for this REM sleep phase. Those of you who have a cat or a dog at home, for example, and observe them sometimes running while they are lying sleeping, this is exactly this phase, these muscle twitches during the sleeping phase.
Just 10 minutes left, Anna.
Thank you, perfect. This is what we get out. This is just an example to show you for one night. We remember the question, so we know where the animal is. Seems a bit silly in a zoo, but it's still important to know, is it in its own box? Is it crossing boxes? Where is the animal in the enclosure? So for the female, for example, you can see this kind of behavioral rhythm. So you can focus on the orange line, that is the sleeping behavior. And you already see there's a lot of sleeping phase during the night, but there's no really clear rhythm. So they are sleeping a lot every hour, if you want to say so, and lying, this is the blue color, as well, very, very much during the night. So it's only, this resting behavior is only interrupted by feeding events marked in red, and there's very, very low walking or standing. When you compare it to the male, same in the same zoo, then you can see there's already a little difference. So this male was not sleeping that much as the female, and was lying down for the rest of the time. So resting phase was equal more or less to that of the female, but sleeping behavior was kind of different. So this is the exactly type of questions we want to address and dig into to answer. So is there a sex effect? So is it always that males sleep different than the females, or was it just that night? And therefore we need several nights to detect whether there are differences between the sexes. So to sum it up for the duiker project, what we found out so far is that they really prefer to lay down on the straw, so soft and warm and dry underground. There is a regular alternation between the left and the right body side. So this is really interesting. They just they're laying down, then they are getting up just to turn around and lay down on the other side of the body and then sleep again. And presumably some differences between male and female behavior during the night. To be analyzed, what I just said is that we wanted to see, is there a season effect? So this was recorded in winter. In summer, they have the choice to be 24/7 inside or outside, their choice, to see if they still prefer the inside or if they want to go outside, for example. Then the focus on the breeding behavior. So we want them to breed. We need to know more about their pregnancy, about their behavior during pregnancy, and then after birth, how the rearing works, and how they use the enclosure and how the suckling rate is, for example. So there's a lot to analyze. Another project is with cheetah and lion. So there we're talking about the carnivores. These are both vulnerable in the wild, and both population trends are decreasing. So again, a need to study their behavior and to get more information about these species. The cheetah, here you see for 3 different zoos, and in total 5 animals. In dark is the night marked, and the line you see is the resting behavior. So in this case, it's not activity, it's resting behavior. And you see that they are lying down, resting nearly the whole night. And during the day, there's just an activity peak or 2 activity peaks in the early morning hours, and then again during the afternoon. Isabel did the same for lions, and here we see a slight difference. So the night is more or less the same. They are very sleepy and resting the whole night. During the day also. So lions are super lazy, and they are just getting up to get some food and turn around and lay down again. Isabel investigated as well where these activity peaks come from, and they were depending on feeding. So when the animals knew they get food, then they became active, and of course during feeding the animals are active. And light as well, that is the same for the duikers, for the giraffe, for all individuals we observed so far, is light one of the most important 𝘕𝘰𝘫𝘬𝘕𝘫, so-called. So when it gets dark, the behavior changes completely, and in this case, the resting or sleeping phases start. I brought you some numbers. We can just go through that quickly. It's just in numbers how sleepy and lazy those carnivores are. The most interesting fact here is that the number and the length of the sleeping event changes or is different between the two species. So the cheetah is during day and night more or less the same length of sleeping phases, so between 10 and 20 minutes roundabout is such a sleeping phase. And for the lions, this is way longer. So during the day, they have shorter sleeping events, but during the night, they can sleep up to 2 hours in a row. Okay, showing you the last project. It's on giraffes in the wild and in zoos. Again, this species is vulnerable and the trend is decreasing. So we did the long-term studies and investigated nocturnal behavior. In the zoo, I want to show you again how this looks like for giraffe, the sleeping phase. That's a giraffe going into the REM sleep position. Most of the time, you won't see this behavior during the day as they are diurnal. Normally, when it's not a very young individual or ill, then you won't see the adult ones sleeping often during the day. What we found out that the nocturnal behavior right now, so from 5 in the afternoon to 7 in the morning, is that giraffes are more or less half of the night resting and the other half active, meaning feeding mostly, standing around and just a little bit of walking during the night. And when you look at the right side, then you see the percentage of REM sleep behavior. That's very, very short in giraffes. So there's only 2 to 3% of the whole night spent on REM sleep. And we're interested in the rhythm. So when do these REM sleep events occur? And we did some analysis, and we found out that there's a biphasic profile during the night. It means that when it's getting dark, the giraffe starts to rest and lie down. Then there is an activity peak around midnight again, where they normally feed. And then there's a second resting phase in the early morning hours, where they again go back to very, very short REM sleep. And we found out, because we did this, as you can see, in many zoos with many individuals, that only individual factors had an influence on behavior, and that were age, that were whether the mother has a newborn or not, and species. In this case, it was a reticulated giraffe and Rothschild. So we did the same in the wild, not the same. We tried to, but yeah, working in the wild is really, really tough, but pretty cool. So it's worth it. That's a sleeping phase or position of a giraffe in the wild. On the right side, you will see a small one, the young one lying down. And again, you see these muscle twitches and the head that is going down to the ground in this sleep phase. How did we do that? You saw that the video had a green color. That was done with a night vision camera on top of this picture. This was really great because you also could see the patterns of the code pattern to identify the animals, but you had a very small angle, so it was difficult to observe a whole group. That's why we worked with the thermal imaging camera, and with this method, we could observe really big groups. And as you can see, the body position was displayed perfectly, so we could perfectly do the behavioral observation with the thermal imaging camera. What we also did is we were interested in where do the animals lie down and how do the resting sites look like. And therefore we observed the giraffe during the night, and in the next morning we went back to the resting site and took pictures and measured every distance. And we found out that the bigger the group, the bigger the circumferences is between the single individual. So small group staying together, bigger group, more eyes lying apart from each other. And there's pretty new stuff going on. This is some new results on nocturnal behavior in the wild, because this is the whole night right now we could tell something about. We observed animals not 24/7 during the night, so from afternoon till the early morning hours. And we found, again, as in the zoo, that they show a biphasic sleep profile. So again, the same in the wild. Sun goes down, animals stop walking around. First, some of the animals lay down, and the first ones start with the short sleeping phases. And what we found in the zoo and in the wild, that there's never all individuals of the group are sleeping. So there's safeguard system. So when one or two animals are sleeping, the others are at least lying around, standing around, and being vigilant. To sum up, I showed you the method of behavioral observation and its high potential in order to get information about the species behavioral rhythm throughout the day and the night. We saw the great potential of zoos to be part of this task in order to better understand the behavior of the animals in our care. And I showed you how behavioral research could provide useful information for the recent debate on animal welfare assessment. And therefore, I showed you several projects that are going on right now and their value for animal care. So if you're still interested in behavioral research, then stay tuned. There's some more publications coming out soon. We do have a website where you find all the information about the ongoing project, the other research disciplines we are working at. And here you see a picture of our very big and nice team, which I want to say thank you at this point. And yeah, thank you right now for listening. And I'm happy to answer your questions.
Thank you so much, Anna. It was a fabulous talk, and I would definitely like to formally nominate myself for volunteering to help look at giraffes sleep. So we've got some questions coming in. So I'll go first to Zach England. Zach, if you want to unmute yourself and ask Anna your question.
Hi, Anna. Thank you for the really interesting presentation. I'm curious to know what kind of cameras and kind of recording system you like to use for the 24/7 continuous recording type of projects in zoos.
Mm-hmm. So actually, there is no difference for the 24/7 compared to the night observing equipment we are using. So we do work with two types of cameras, and both working the same. They have recorded, and they are installed somewhere in the enclosure. And then they can record up to 4 cameras, and then depending on the frame rate per second, on the recording rate, you can record like up to 4 weeks, somewhat. The problem often is that for zoos, they do not want us to record during the day. It has to do with keepers, data security, visitors, maybe sometimes. That's sometimes very difficult to get the permits to observe during the day. And during the night, of course, they are not there, so it's a little bit more easy. So if you're interested, just email me, and then I can give you the equipment name, and then you can look that up for you. But that's working quite good. It's the system is already working during the day, so then you have a colored picture. During the night, it's black and white.
Fabulous, thanks, Anna. We've got a question from Hamza Khan. Hamza, do you want to unmute and ask your question? Well, I can ask the question. We weren't sure if Hamza was able to ask the question directly. So the question was, how can we make our animals more active in the night within captivity, within zoos? Because obviously when we're comparing with wild animals, you know, we are seeing some activity there. So, you know, do we need that same type of activity in captivity as well?
So the question is, okay, the question is, do we need to enrich the animals during the night? So I would say if it's a diurnal animal that normally sleeps and rests during the night, then I would say definitely not, because this is the time where they do not want to be disturbed by whatever. So obviously not. By animals, of course, or for animals, of course, they are nocturnal. This would be a pretty interesting task for those who have not the opportunity or the facility to switch day and night. So there's many zoos that have the nocturnal houses where it's just for them during our day, for them is night, so we can see and work with them. That would be way more easy. Then you can just work as well as you're doing right now, because you can observe during the day. Otherwise, yeah, one could get the answers from recording and from observing the behavior. So get the enrichment in the enclosure and then just observe what they are doing. So definitely depending on the natural rhythm of an animal. And yeah, what we saw in our studies already is that feeding management has a big implication. So especially for the carnivores, of course, they're just their motivation to get up to get food, and then the time they need to feed actually. That's the most active phase of the day or the night, and there is maybe a little shift already between the individuals in the wild and those in the zoos, and this could be an option to feed, to change the feeding time in order to enrich the animals. Not enrichment with food, but to get them active at their normal feeding time during dusk and during dawn, for example.
All right, thank you, Anna. My mic was off that thing. All right, thank you so much. All right.
You're welcome. Hi.
I got your question, right? Thank you so much.
Thanks, Hamza. Did I cover that question appropriately, or have you got anything else you want to ask on the back of it?
No, right. That was right. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
What's the
Thank
second
you.
question I got for? Thank you so much.
Great. So a little bit linked to that, actually, Anna, I was just wondering if it's okay to have a quick question. Do you think we should be doing more for our animals overnight? Because if we've got, so, you know, where you're talking with your giraffe and you've got that kind of a relatively short period of resting time overnight. So there's that big kind of lull when there's no keepers, we don't know what animals are doing. Do we need to do more within those environments? And then I guess, how do we balance that off against accidentally disturbing them overnight? So I know, you know, I've sort of looked at stuff with elephants, and in elephants we've seen sometimes that if you've got automated feeders, you're then causing disturbance for your animals, which is then getting them up, and that's not necessarily a good thing. So kind of how do we balance that, doing stuff but not doing too much, do you think?
I think there it's really worth it to look at their natural rhythm and to look what they are doing at night. So that doesn't have to be always the behavior from the wild, could also be the baseline of the zoo animals. So looking, where are they at night? How do they behave? Is there a need for a feeder, for example? So when you feed the giraffe with ad libitum, the only thing you can see is, oh, maybe they have fed everything until midnight. So the rest of the night there is no feeding anymore. That's obviously not good, but you can only see it when you observe during the night. So again, I think it's the best we can do is offer their places and having their needs in mind. So for example, the warm and dry and cozy bed So we did some studies there. We just moved the bed and to look whether they stay to the position in the enclosure or whether they move with the underground, and they moved. So it's kind of this kind of yeah, it's not an experiment, but this kind of test, you can get an idea how they would like to lay down. So I don't think that there's a need to do enrichment during the night for animals that want to rest during the night.
Great, thank you. We've got another question. So there is good evidence in humans, and there's also good evidence in other species. Obviously, there's been lots done in rats, that we see shortened lifespans in animals that have got chronically poor sleep. And also, you know, when we've got sort of like long-term night shift workers and things. Do you know of any evidence regarding sort of poor sleep or those kind of disturbed sleep or activity patterns, and what's the impact of a lifespan in zoos?
I do not know about any kind of research looking at that. So the first thing that came into my mind is, therefore, you would need very long-term observation. So you need to know the animal is chronically sleeping different, less, for example, and then to see that this is the only cause, or the cause maybe it dies earlier. So this is a really, really interesting question that only can be answered with very long-term studies. What I did observe in different occasions was that ill animals, for example, there was one giraffe bull with what's the word in English? Arthrosis. And this one couldn't lay down anymore. So actually there were several nights, weeks of nights, the animal could not lay down. And this is kind of very difficult then, because the animal cannot sleep in REM phase without lying down. So yeah, in this case, there's definitely then a need to do something. And you just know, or just get this information when you also do nocturnal behavior observation.
Yeah, fabulous. Thank you. Yeah, I think that was a really interesting question as well, you know, especially when we think about disturbance from young animals, because I mean, anybody with babies will know that that's pretty stressful time, and obviously then the animals have got the same thing as well. And I think we've just got time for one more question. So you were talking, you know, with the duiker, you were talking about, you know, that there might be some sort of issues and things with that male. Just wondering kind of what's the process that you would go through once you've identified the issues? What's the process you go to try and address them? And then in your experience, what do you think those kind of key factors are that are really likely to impact on overnight behavior in animals? What are the things we most need to be considering in management?
So the first thing on the duiker, this was just one night I showed you. So this could be just a special night. Maybe the duiker was very excited because the female was cycling next to him. I don't know. That could be one option. So again, there we need many nights to see whether there is a difference between the male and the female, or if this was just a night that was out of range, and there was nothing special. It was just short sleeping phases than the female showed. And not to forget, the female was pregnant at the time, so of course this could be an influencing factor as well. To answer your second question, we did that for giraffe in a big study, and some colleagues, Jennifer Grubert is also there, is doing this on a very large scale right now for many species, looking for impact factors. So looking for human and individual influencing factors that might change behavior, or that might be the driver for behavior. So what I found with my study is that there's only the individual factors. So it's depending whether it's a female or a young one or an older one. But factors like enclosure size, like if they were stored together or single stored up, if they had different materials in their enclosure, all these factors had no impact. So it was just the individual prerequisites that were driving the behavior.
Yeah. Okay, fabulous. Thank you so much. We're bang on time, so I don't want to hold you up for any longer, and I don't want to hold anyone else up. So just want to say, obviously, a huge thank you for coming along, Anna. We really appreciate your time. It's been a fantastic talk. Thanks to everybody that came along and listened to the talk. Sorry if we didn't manage to get through to your questions. If you have got more questions, do get in touch with Anna directly.